Good afternoon, everybody. Firstly, I would like to say thank you to Mr. Herditia, our introduction to literature lecturer, for allowing us to present our virtual presentation today. Secondly, we are going to present our analysis of the short story titled Boys and Girls by Alice Munro. Before that, let us introduce ourselves. My name is Alya Ambar Afifah.
My name is Fingki Irma Delfia.
And my name is Sania Nabila Kamalin.
Our project goals are to discuss four main points. They are the plot, the characters, the narrative perspective, and the setting of the story. Here is a brief information about the author and the short story that our group has chosen. It will be explained by Delfia. For Delfia, the time is yours.
Thank you, Alya, for the time. And I would like to explain about the short story. Boys and Girls is a short story by Alice Munro. This short story was originally published in 1964. Alice Munro was born on 10th of July 1931 in Wingham, Ontario, Canada. She is a Canadian short story writer who gained international recognition with her exquisitely drawn narratives. The Swedish Academy dubbed her a master of the contemporary short story when it awarded her the Nobel Prize for Literature in 2013.
All right, thank you, Delfia. The next is the plot. Well, my name is Alya, and I would like to explain about the plot of the short story Boys and Girls by Alice Munro. Usually, short stories are structured with a simple plot. They have a beginning or exposition where the characters and the mystery are introduced, a middle where the main action occurs, which builds to the climax, and an end which includes the following action and the resolution. Next slide, please. All right, we are going to discuss the beginning of the short story. At the story's beginning, the narrator introduced her father as a fog farmer who sells silver fog fur to big companies. The narrator has a younger brother named Lev. They watch their father's work who skin the fog pelt in the cellar of their house. However, the narrator's mother doesn't like it and hopes that doesn't happen in the house. The narrator also introduced a hard man named Henry Bailey, who has a trouble with his breathing and he often coughs until his face turns red. The narrator explained her and his brother's behavior before sleeping is singing songs. After her brother sleeping, that is the best time for the narrator in the whole day. And then the narrator's summertime is to bring water to the pans twice a day using a wheelbarrow with a tin drum. This routine involves filling the drum at the pump, turning into the pans, and watering the foxes. Next slide, please. We move on to the middle of the story, especially in raising action. The raising action of the story occurs when the narrator does kitchen work, but she doesn't like it. Then she hears the conversation between her parents. Her mom thinks that Laird will be more helpful when he's older. The girl doesn't like and thinks her mom shouldn't be in the barn. The girl is upset that her mom sees Laird as more helpful because she thinks he's not helpful and just plays around. The narrator, I'm sorry, the narrator doesn't fully trust her mom. She sees her mom as a both someone who helps and someone who tries to stop her from working on the farm with her dad. The flock is fed horse meat. In the winter, the family had two horses in their stable named Mac and Flora. In the middle of the story, the narrator and her little brother fight, but it is not usual that she use all their strength against him. The narrator's grandma tells her how girls are supposed to act, but the narrator doesn't like it. Instead of following the rules, she keeps slamming doors and sitting the way she wants. She thinks doing this helps her stay free and not be controlled by what others expect. Next slide, please. We are going to discuss the climax of the story. The climax of the story occurs when the horse Mac will be shot. Their father doesn't allow them to look at the activity. However, the narrator persuades her little brother to see it. 2 weeks later, Flora is going to be shot, but Flora runs around freely. The family tried to catch her, but she escaped into a field. The narrator, on the other side of the fence, was told to close the gate to stop Flora. Instead of closing it, the narrator decided to open the gate wide, letting Flora run toward the township road. When Henry and her father arrived, they thought the narrator hadn't closed the gate in time, not realizing the narrator intentionally let Flora go. However, the little brother knows what the narrator does. When the narrator goes back home, she doesn't tell the truth to her mom about what actually happened. Next slide, please. All right. After the climax, we have a falling action in the story. The falling action of this story occurs when the family came back from shooting Flora. The truck was covered, showing they had meat. Because of the delay, the mother had to warm up dinner again. Henry and the father cleaned up, and Laird excitedly told everyone they had shot and cut up Flora. But the mother didn't want to hear about it, and the father told Laird to wash off the blood before dinner. Next slide, please. The last one is resolution. At the end of the story, when the family has dinner, Laird says it was the narrator's fault that Flora got away. The father is disappointed and asks the narrator about it. Laird tells everyone that the narrator didn't close the gate, allowing Flora to escape. The father dismisses the issue and says, "She's only a girl." The narrator cries and, feeling a mix of shame and resignation, doesn't argue anything. I think it's enough about the plot of the short story. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Sania, and I would like to explain the characters in this story. There are six characters in this story. The first is the narrator, the second is Laird, the third is father, the fourth is mother, the fifth is Henry Bailey, and the last is grandmother. The first is the narrator. The narrator is a young girl about to turn 11. She is very energetic and has a rounded character. In the beginning, she sees herself as strong and independent. She would rather help with her father's work than with her mother's work. Therefore, she always rebelled against her mother and grandmother who tried to make her more feminine. The second is Laird. He is the narrator's younger brother. He is lazy and always reports to his parents when the narrator does something bad. Although his sister is older, Laird is already seen as better and as if he can do no wrong. The third is father. The narrator's father is a hardworking man who wants Laird to grow up quickly so that he can help him in his work. This makes the narrator admire her father very much because she wants to contribute to the work on the farm and wants to impress her father. However, like his mother, he seems to see a future where his daughter will eventually stop helping him and only help the mother. The fourth is mother. The narrator's mother is an ordinary housewife who follows gender roles and expects her daughter to follow in her footsteps. She tries hard to make her daughter feel at home and helps her with household duties. The next is Henry Bailey. Henry is someone who is the laborer of the narrator's father. He has a pleasant personality, and the family shows their appreciation by inviting him to dinner and spending time with him. And the last character is grandmother. The narrator's grandmother is strict and has old-fashioned thinking. She thinks that women should only do housework. In this story, there is not much characterization of the grandmother because the narrator only mentions her a little. The next is about kinds of characters. In Boys and Girls by Alice Munro, the protagonist, a young girl, can be considered a round character. I'm sorry, I will repeat again about the kinds of character. In this story, there is two kinds of character. They are flat and rounded. Uh, the protagonist, a young girl, can be considered a round character as she experiences growth and change through the narrative. The other characters in the story, such as Kurt's parent and brother, may be considered flat characters as they do not undergo significant development or change. There are also modes of presentation in this story. There are two modes of presentation in the story. They are narrative and dialogue. We can conclude that the narrative mode in Boys and Girls is most likely a combination of first person point of view and past tense. The story was told from the perspective of a young girl, and the stories are told in the past tense. On the other hand, the author also uses dialogue modes in the story. We can see the dialogue between the narrator and Henry's uncle, the narrator and his father, the narrator and his mother, and the narrator and later in some parts of the story. I think it's enough for me.
Well, I'm Delfia, and I would like to explain about the narrative perspective in the story. Boys and Girls is written in first-person narration. The narrator describes herself as the main character who is also the protagonist in the story. This type of narration can be identified from the personal pronouns used by the narrator, such as I, me, my, and also we. Here, the evidence is in the text. My father was a fox farmer. My brother laid and I sat on the top step and watched. The next one, it's discouraged me that the real war had gone. My mother was so tired and preoccupied to talk to me after we had sent to bed, blah, blah, blah. The next slide, please. Well, and I would like to explain about the setting of the story. As we know, the setting consists of three, namely setting of place, setting of time, and the last one is setting of social surroundings. The first one, I would like to explain about the setting of place. The setting of the story is a fox farm in the countryside, Canada. Although it is not directly stated that the farm is located in Canada, the narrator does say that her father sold pelts to Hudson's Bay Company and Montreal Fur Traders. These two companies located in Canada. You can see this statement in the first paragraph. And the second one, the story also takes place in the cellar of their house. It can be seen in second paragraph. Furthermore, the story also takes place in the narrator's bedroom. When the narrator sings the song Daddy Boys before going to bed, you can see the evidence in fourth paragraph. The next one, this story also takes place in the barn. It can be seen in the 12th paragraph when the narrator describes her mother picking up groceries such as fruit, potatoes, and so on in the barn. Okay, the next one is setting of time. This story happened at night in the winter also indicates that the farm is located somewhere in the north with strong winds and heavy snows. And you can see in the sixth paragraph. The story also happens several weeks before Christmas. You can see in the second paragraph the statement such as this. For several weeks before Christmas, my father worked after supper in the cellar of our house. Next slide, please. The next one is a setting of social surroundings. The story takes place a few weeks before Christmas. This year is never stated, but it is clear that the events in the story are taking place at some point after the war, most likely World War II in the 17th and 18th centuries, when many farmers were trading in their horses for farm machinery. I think that's all for me.
All right, thank you, Delvia. The next one is the conclusion of our virtual presentation today will be explained by Sania. For Sania, the time is yours.
Okay, in conclusion, Boys and Girls by Alice Munro is a story that learns about the challenges faced by a young girl growing up in a society with strict gender roles and expectations. The narrator's journey to find her own identity and fight against the limitations imposed on her by society is a central theme in the story. The story is primarily around six characters. The narrative is presented from first person. The story takes place on a folk farm in the countryside of Canada several weeks before Christmas and is thought to take place after World War II.
All right, thank you, Sania. Well, everybody, finally we have come to the end of the virtual presentation today. Before that, I would like to remind all of you that we are opening an online forum discussion in CPHR. So if you want to ask a question, give comments, or give constructive criticism, please write in the place that has been provided. Once again, I would like to say thank you to those who have watched our video, and we are so sorry if we made a mistake. Thank you for your excellent attention and participation. See you on the next occasion. Have a nice day. Thank you.